Okay, this is a YouTube video on scrapping an electric can opener. As with all my videos, I've got the weights of everything at the end. Um, so yeah, once again, this is fairly basic, but I guess the advantage is I show you how much everything weighs so you can decide if it's worth your effort. So you just want to start with popping the screws off the back cover. Pretty straightforward. Um, and yeah, the plastic is junk, so you just pull the cord through there, and that top cover, just chuck it to the side. Um, you'll notice that there's that grinding wheel on the top. I don't really know what to do with that, so I just chuck it. You'll just want to quick check everything over and unscrew whatever's loose. That's always a good first step, I find. There's a few more screws there that I decided I better quick take out. So that'll kind of release the motor. And that little grinder, that was actually for a knife sharpening attachment on the back of this particular can opener. I have no idea if they're all like that. Um, but yeah, that piece there is actually fairly heavy. So it's just basic scrap metal though, so it's not worth a whole lot. In there you do have a big coil of copper. Um, that can be taken off with not a ton of work. Since it'll be clean, I think it's worth your effort. I'll show you that a little later in the video. Yeah, so in the meantime here I'm just clipping the cord. I always cut my ends off because occasionally you'll get discounted for that. And I just accumulate all my end pieces in a big bin and send them in now and then as well. You don't get paid quite as well, but they still pay you for it, so that's always a nice thing. So just flipping it over, there's a magnet to hold the can. Just pop that out of there. There again, I always keep my magnets separate. Of course, with scrapping, you always want to carry a couple magnets with you just for when you're hunting for aluminum and whatnot. But if you do accumulate too many, some yards will give you extra for the magnets, some will not. Um, so yeah, I'm just grabbing the last little bit of metal off this cover. Didn't want to come off too easy. This stuff also goes a little quicker when I'm in the shop just because I can be a little more reckless, but for videoing I'm doing it inside, so I try not to make a big mess. Whereas in the shop, quite often the plastic will just get hit with the big hammer and that's it. But obviously inside that's not a real good plan. And I'm trying to grab all the little pieces of metal just to show you guys exactly how much is in there. Some of these little bits and pieces probably aren't worth your effort normally, unless you're just smashing it. And then you just grab it with a pick up and drop magnet and sweep up the rest after. At least that's what I do. But you can see I pulled out the um, knife part for cutting the can and all the little mechanisms associated with that. And there's a little pin in there, but it was too hard to get with just my side cutters, so I set that to the side. So next we're going to chase after this big coil of copper. There's a bunch of tape on there, so you're just going to want to take that off, and it can be ridiculously sticky sometimes. As you can see, I can't get it off my fingers. But yeah, just unwrap that. And what you're going to want to do next here is so that metal goes through the inside of the coil. Oh, actually here there's a couple thicker pieces of copper wire, so I've just cut them on each end and I'm pulling them through the bundle. So those are all little plates, kind of all laminated together. So if you pull out those little pieces of copper, they come with a little bit of effort, but not terrible. And then what you want to do is start splitting those plates, and they'll actually come loose. Um, you can bend them around so that eventually you can pull that copper coil right out. So this takes a little bit of effort doing it this way, because basically you're taking maybe 2 layers at a time and bending them up, 2 layers, bending them up. Once again, if you're out in the shop or whatever, you can just grab an old axe or kind of any wedge type thing, a chisel, and just knock the end off, and that'll usually work with not a ton of effort. But if you like lots of effort, certainly do it this way. And then what I'm doing here is, so I got the metal all peeled off, I'm just knocking that copper coil off. I think on the video here I just knock it most of the way, and then I grab my side cutters and cut the end of the plastic off. No, it really didn't want to come, but there again, with the proper workbench and whatnot, you can knock that pretty hard. So I'm just cutting the ends of the plastic off to get this wire started, and it'll come off pretty easy. Just another wire end, that'll go in a separate pile, and you give it a pull and it all just comes sliding off. And yeah, that plastic piece comes off once the tension of that copper's off as well. So yeah, you pull that off and you're done. You got clean copper, you got metal, you got some wire, you got that magnet, you got some cord ends. So here's the weigh-in. On your clean, nice number 1 copper, there's 4.1 ounces. The wire is a 1.7 ounces. I don't usually strip that. It seems like a lot of effort. The magnet was 0.2. Just toss it in the bin. The wire ends, there was a few different kinds there, but they ended up being 0.6 ounces. And then all the miscellaneous, just cheap metal, which adds up. There again, I've got some pails, I just throw it in, and once I accumulate a truck box load, I just run that stuff in. The more valuable stuff, it's worth shopping around, but the basic metal, just take it wherever's closest or work it into a trip. That's what I do, at least. And that came out to 1 pound and 1.6 ounces. So it does accumulate. And yeah, there's your totals. So happy scrapping.